The moment the confirmation arrived, it cut through years of speculation like a sudden jolt of electricity. There was no teaser, no gradual build-up, just a clear and unmistakable statement that left little room for doubt. Sam Heughan was married, and the world learned it almost all at once. What stunned people most was not the marriage itself, but the realization that it had already happened beyond public sight. For a long time, Sam's personal life had existed in a carefully protected space. Interviews stayed focused on work, humor softened invasive questions, and silence filled the gaps where curiosity grew too loud. That pattern trained audiences to believe they understood his boundaries. The confirmation shattered that sense of familiarity, exposing how much had unfolded without notice. In the days leading up to the announcement, there had been no warning signs. No engagement rumors, no suspicious absences, no blurred photographs hinting at something bigger. Fans who followed every appearance and interview believed they would sense a shift before such a revelation. The fact that they did not make the confirmation feel almost surreal. What gave the moment its global impact was Sam's tone. He did not sound defensive or triumphant. His words were calm, grounded, and final, as if he were closing a door rather than opening one. There was no invitation for debate, only acknowledgement. That clarity transformed disbelief into shock, because it left no room for reinterpretation. The reaction was immediate and widespread. Headlines appeared across continents within minutes, and social media platforms flooded with the same stunned question repeated in dozens of languages. How had something so significant gone unnoticed for so long? The speed of the response reflected not just curiosity, but a sense of collective surprise that bordered on disbelief. What intensified the shock was the way the confirmation rewrote assumptions. For years, Sam had been perceived as someone whose life unfolded largely in public view. Projects were announced, milestones celebrated, and achievements shared openly. Marriage, however, had occurred quietly, without ceremony for the audience that believed it was watching closely. Observers quickly noticed that Sam did not attempt to contextualize or soften the news. He did not frame it as a recent development or hint at a future reveal. The marriage existed as a fact, complete and self-contained. That decision signaled confidence rather than secrecy, suggesting he had chosen the moment carefully. The absence of details became part of the story. Without information about when or how it happened, imagination rushed in to fill the space. Some admired the discipline required to maintain such privacy, while others struggled with the feeling of being left behind. The confirmation forced fans to confront the limits of access they had assumed. Media coverage mirrored that divide. Some outlets praised the restraint and dignity of the announcement, while others framed it as a dramatic twist. Yet even the most sensational headlines could not change the core reality. The marriage was real, and it had unfolded entirely on Sam's terms. What stood out most was the timing. The confirmation did not coincide with a crisis or controversy. It arrived during a period of professional stability, suggesting intention rather than reaction. By choosing to speak when he felt secure, Sam reframed the narrative from secrecy to control. As the initial shock settled, a deeper realization emerged. This was not a story about deception or misdirection. It was about autonomy. Sam Heughan had lived a major chapter of his life without public permission, and the confirmation made that fact unavoidable. By the end of the first wave of reaction, one truth had become clear. The world was not shocked because Sam had married, but because he had done so without inviting anyone else into the moment. And that realization marked a turning point in how his public image would be understood moving forward. The second shock arrived not with noise, but with a name. After the world had barely absorbed the confirmation that Sam Heughan was married, attention turned instantly to the question that followed naturally. If the marriage was real, then who was the woman who had shared a life-changing moment entirely out of sight? The curiosity was intense, but what came next left many unprepared. When the bride's identity finally surfaced, it did not fit the narrative most fans had constructed over the years. There was no long trail of public appearances, no familiar figure repeatedly linked to Sam in headlines. Instead, The name that emerged challenged assumptions and disrupted years of speculation. For many, the surprise was not disappointment or excitement, but disbelief. What made the reveal so stunning was its quietness. There was no celebratory announcement, no carefully staged introduction, and no attempt to frame the relationship for public approval. The information appeared almost reluctantly, as if meant to confirm reality rather than invite reaction. That restraint only amplified the impact. Fans reacted in waves. Some expressed genuine happiness, relieved to see Sam settled and fulfilled beyond his professional achievements. Others struggled with the sudden clarity, feeling disconnected from a story they believed they had followed closely. The divide was emotional rather than hostile, shaped by expectations that reality refused to honor. Observers began re-examining the past with new eyes. Moments once considered insignificant were replayed, interviews reread, timelines reconstructed. Yet even with hindsight, there was little evidence to support the belief that the marriage could have been predicted. The relationship had been guarded with remarkable consistency, leaving no obvious trace. Sam's response to the growing noise remained unchanged. He did not elaborate on the bride's background or the nature of their relationship. There were no statements aimed at reassurance, no gestures designed to soften the shock. His silence, paired with the confirmation, conveyed a clear message. This was his life, and the disclosure ended where it needed to. Media coverage gradually shifted tone. Initial headlines emphasized surprise and fan reaction, but analysis soon followed. Commentators noted the discipline required to maintain such privacy under constant scrutiny. Rather than framing the reveal as deception, many began to see it as a deliberate boundary long in place. The conversation broadened beyond the marriage itself. Questions emerged about entitlement, access, and the illusion of intimacy between public figures and their audiences. Sam's decision forced a reckoning with how much of a celebrity's life is assumed to belong to others simply because it is visible. For longtime fans, the adjustment was not immediate. Years of emotional investment do not disappear overnight. Yet as the initial shock faded, a more reflective response began to surface. Many acknowledged that admiration does not grant ownership, and support does not require proximity to private milestones. What lingered was the contrast between expectation and reality. The idea that someone so visible could live something so significant entirely off-camera unsettled many, not because it was wrong, but because it revealed the limits of observation. The stunned reaction spoke less about the bride and more about the assumptions surrounding fame. In the end, the identity reveal did not create scandal. It created clarity. Sam Heughan had confirmed his marriage and allowed the truth to stand without commentary. The bride's identity stunned fans because it existed beyond the story they had imagined, and that difference became the point. As attention slowly moved on, one lasting impression remained. This was not a moment designed to satisfy curiosity, but one that reasserted control. Sam did not invite the world into his marriage. He simply acknowledged it, reminding everyone that even under a global spotlight, some chapters are written quietly, and that choice can be more shocking than any reveal. In the end, the identity reveal did not create scandal. It created clarity. Sam Heughan had confirmed his marriage and allowed the truth to stand without commentary. The bride's identity stunned fans because it existed beyond the story they had imagined, and that difference became the point.